Got a little bit of a delay. Let's see what happens. Oh, that's so much better. Come on in. Let's talk about what happens when you realize you're not engaging in conversations about race, racism, or race relations because you're just afraid that you might offend someone. That's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to give people about 3 minutes to jump in and join us. Hey, Diana and Annette, so good that you are here. This topic is one of my most favorite topics because in all the years of working on diversity and inclusion and social justice and equity issues, one of the biggest questions really is, or one of the biggest comments is that, people are afraid that they're going to offend someone, so they just don't engage at all. So we're going to dive into that in just a couple of minutes. Timothy Rich, hey, how you doing? How are you? So if you're not already familiar with the What Is Mine to Do Facebook group, I really encourage you to join in. We're always sharing information and talking about these kinds of topics because in the group, the What Is Mine to Do group, we're very, very focused on answering that question. What is mine to do to reduce or eliminate race-based hatred and violence? Like, what is mine to do? So we share information with each other. We post articles that we see that, one, we can use to educate others, but also we want to make sure we spend a significant amount of time talking about actions we can take and sharing success stories that can be shared with others. Hey, Steph and Joyce, so glad that you have joined in. So I'm going to give it about 60 more seconds. We'll give people 3 full minutes to dive in completely. And then I'm going to go because, this topic is something I actually have a 3-hour workshop that is on this topic of moving beyond this fear of offending others when you're talking about diversity and inclusion related topics, especially as it relates to race. And I'm not going to have 3 hours. I'm going to have less than 30 minutes to give you some ideas and some tips that hopefully you'll be able to use, and it will pique your interest and you'll want to do even more on your own. Hey, Sherry, good to see you. And I think it is time to dive in. So I'm afraid to offend. That really is the number one comment that I hear from people when the question is, what's a barrier for you? What is it that makes you, well, not even afraid, but not want to talk about race or racism or race relations? And over, people report that they want to talk about it, they want to learn more, but they're afraid they'll offend someone. So what do I hear from people? People tell me, because my question is, you're the one who wants to learn more. You're the one who wants to get better at it. Why are you afraid? I don't want to look dumb. I don't want to make the other person mad. I don't want to say something stupid. I don't want to ask a question that I should already know the answer to. I'm afraid that if I bring this up, everybody in the room will get uncomfortable and quiet. Those are like the, kind of the big buckets. There are some specific examples that could go in each of those buckets. But it's like, oh, that's neither logical nor helpful, in my opinion. So I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. If I want to learn more about something I don't know, then I need to be willing to ask questions. If I decide I'm just not even going to talk about that because I might offend someone, then I'm not going to learn anything more, right? How will you learn what you don't know? How will you learn about different groups? How will you build relationships with people who are different from you if you're afraid to talk about race or ethnicity? And this is not just a white-black issue or concern. I get the exact same responses if I talk to a group and the majority of people in the group are African American, and we'll be talking about building healthy, effective relationships with other communities of color. And there will be African Americans who will say, well, you know, I don't want to offend the Hispanic community by, you know, saying something that's offensive or that's inappropriate, or I don't know what to say, you know, and I don't even know what to ask. And so I just, you know, I'm just going to be quiet. And I guess, you know, folks from the Asian American Chamber of Commerce will fill me in, you know, and this was in a business setting. So it's not logical. If you want to know more, you've got to be willing to dive into the conversation. It's not helpful. If you want to have real relationships, authentic relationships, relationships that work, and relationships that are based on meaning, then you've got to be willing to dive into the conversation. So I am going to talk about what are some things you can do and how do you build your confidence. But before I do that, you know, it strikes me that a lot of times our fears, if not always, our fears are really based on some hidden beliefs that are no longer serving us. Our fears are based on some hidden beliefs that we may not even notice. And I'll correct myself, because sometimes our hidden beliefs are serving us. They are keeping us safe. It's a belief. We have the fear. We don't even realize why we have the fear. And it actually is serving us in that time. So all hidden beliefs are not beliefs that we need to like get rid of and let go. But if I have a hidden belief underneath what I think I know, right? So I think I know, I don't want to talk about this, or I'm afraid to talk about racism because they're going to get mad. Well, what's a possible hidden belief under that? A possible hidden belief is if they get mad, I won't be able to handle it, right? If they get mad at me, then I'm a bad person. Okay, there's some other hidden beliefs that start showing up when we recognize that we're afraid to talk about race, racism, and race relations. So there's a hidden belief for some people that, well, I deserve to be comfortable. I deserve to be comfortable. So I'm not going to talk about this because it makes me uncomfortable. Or, you know, my whole life, as I grew up, it was drilled into me that before I open my mouth, I need to know what I'm talking about. So I may have a hidden belief that I need to be right. I'm supposed to be right. I'm supposed to know the right thing to do. I'm an adult now. I've been around for 40 years. I should know what to do or what to say. Well, that belief may not be serving you if you've never been around people from a different ethnic group and now you're working with or providing service to or wanting to minister to people in a community that's different from what you grew up. Well, you're not going to be right. You're not going to know the right thing to do. But there may be a belief in you that says, well, I'm supposed to know. And so I just can't talk about that because I don't know. You know, I'm whatever age I am, and I've learned everything that I'm going to learn. Right? I mean, how ridiculous does that sound when I say it out loud? And we don't realize sometimes that's really what we're thinking, or our subconscious is thinking and trying to protect us from being wrong, when really we just don't know. We need to learn. I should know about cultures that are different from me. Sometimes I catch myself. Now, I've done a lot of work in my life from a very young age to learn about different cultures, to understand different cultures, to become comfortable going into different cultural settings and finding my way and building relationship. And even I sometimes will catch myself thinking, well, I'm just going to be a little quiet because I should already know this. Luckily, I normally will catch that. And I'll realize, wait, how would I already know this? I've never been in this environment before. But that hidden belief is working, right? Is working and is guiding me and reminding me or telling me I should already know, so I better be quiet. Because if I ask the wrong question or if I speak up too much, then everybody in the room will know that I don't already know it. And I'm emphasizing that just a little bit because we know better, but we get caught in our habit. We get caught in our default thinking around this. Sometimes our fear reflects a hidden belief that I'll get hurt, right? I'll get hurt if, or there's danger in me saying something that someone else might feel is inappropriate or might judge negatively. And so that belief, if you're not aware of it, will also make you silent. And the question to ask around that is, am I afraid that I'm going to be hurt physically? Am I going to be hurt mentally? Or am I going to be hurt emotionally? Like, is the hurt about my pride? I don't want to look bad and I'm going to hurt emotionally if I'm not on top of this, or if I do it incorrectly or say something that's not quite right. If I realize I'm afraid I'm going to get hurt and I really feel I'm in a physically dangerous situation, that might be a reason to actually slow down, back up, and assess where you are and what to say. But you can still ask questions at that point. In fact, at that point, you would turn to questions, not statements, right? But understanding this fear is coming from this place of I'm afraid I'm going to be hurt is a really powerful thing to recognize, because it's only then that you're able to decide what to do next. So just like in anything else in our lives, it's really powerful to step back just enough to say, okay, here's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid if I say something that I'm going to look stupid, or I'm afraid if I say something that everybody will know I don't know, or I'm not as much of an expert as they think I am. It's great. That's on the surface. I can identify that pretty quickly. So then if I go underneath that, what are some of the hidden beliefs that are making me or driving my fear? So the thing to notice is that most of the time, not always, but most of the time, these hidden beliefs are all about me, right? I expect to be comfortable everywhere I go in my life, or I really have a need to be right. I've been raised that I should be right. And if I don't know, I shouldn't speak up. I should already know this. I should know this information. I should have done my homework. I should have looked this up before I got here. I won't be able to handle it if that person is angry or frustrated. The common denominator for most of our hidden beliefs in this topic are, I am trying to protect myself. I have forgotten all about why I'm really here. I have forgotten it's not about the other people. I am looking in the mirror and I am really I am really putting all the focus on myself. I am centering everything on me. The reason it's so important to recognize that, especially when we're talking about race, racism, and race relations, is because that's the fear that keeps everything centered around me and myself. And it keeps me from building a bridge to you, to the other person, to the other group. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's what in my heart I want to do. And so if I could notice my beliefs, my hidden beliefs that are stopping me from action are about me looking at myself, and shift my focus to, no, I really want to know about this other group. I really want to understand this person. I really want to understand the impact of race or racism in their life. Then I'm going to be less focused on, less driven by me trying to look good, sound good, be in charge, be in control, because I am choosing to pay attention to the other person or group. So yeah, I talked a little bit about why are people afraid to talk about this or to engage in this kind of topic, and why that's neither logical nor helpful if you truly have a desire to build cross-cultural bridges, and if you truly have a desire to understand the experience of people of different races and ethnic groups in the United States and in the world. Then you have got to move beyond the hidden beliefs and move into action. So what can you do to get over this fear? I'm going to share maybe 4 or 5, maybe a couple more if I get on a real roll and we still have time. I wanted to be sure that I allotted at least 10 minutes of our 25 minutes on what to do about it, and not just rehash what the problem is, right? So the first thing that you can do is you can do your own individual research. Now, we're right on the verge of 2020. Technology is available to almost all of us. We use it so much. And then we forget when there's something we want to learn that that's a place to start. So every one of us can do our own work, at least lay a foundation for our own work by doing our individual research. Google is really smart, right? Doing a search through any of the search engines, the general search engines, will give you some information. Now, I'm the first to remind you that everything you find on the internet is not true. So you can't go to the internet and do a search and say, I want to learn more about X, Y, or Z, and then read one thing and think that now you have the answer. So especially in topics that are influenced by culture, and race and ethnicity are two identities that influence the cultural experience of human beings. So especially things that are related by culture, I would look for at least 10 different sources of information about us if you're looking for a specific topic, right? I would look for at least 10, read them, and then begin to see what is the common pattern, what's coming up over and over. And then I would use that to go a little bit deeper. You know, don't do one search, read what Wikipedia says, and then think, I've got this. I'm ready now. Let me go talk to Tracy about what it's like to be a Black woman, right? No, that's not going to work. Then once you've done some basic individual research, assuming you have time to do that, and you're not just finding yourself dropped into, a live situation where you have to react, but developing your own wisdom, and you are learning about a cultural group or a racial identity group, um, do your work with a trusted friend or mentor. Some of you have heard me tell the story about my friend Maya, and I wrote about her in my first book, and how I really avoided being in conversation with her. I'm a Black woman, she's a white woman. We were both consultants, and we had some things in common. We both were trainers, we both were spiritual. We had some things in common, and we had a lot of things that were not in common. And when she first began to say, Tracy, can we have some conversations about, about race? And I have some questions. I avoided really having a deep conversation with her for months, because I was weary of being asked by white people questions when it was clear they had not done any work on their own. But ultimately, when we did have our first conversation, it was so obvious to me. She had done a lot of reading, a lot of research. She had gone beneath the surface, and her questions were really fascinating questions. And they were about my experience, not asking me to speak for all Black people who have ever existed anywhere on the planet. And we, not surprisingly, became really close friends and participated in a group with a group of people, multi-ethnic group of people, where we explored and had dialogue about race and the impact of race in our lives and in the world. But doing that work with a friend or mentor where you can actually go deep, finding someone you can talk with, where you become less guarded and less afraid, and they're going to coach you a little bit on how to dive into the topic. That's another option for you. Third option is to learn and practice listening skills. One of the reasons I think people are afraid that they're going to get shut down or that they're going to be, judged, is because they'll ask a question, or more often they will state their opinion. And then when someone comes back with a counter opinion, then they don't really listen. They don't really listen for understanding. They don't really listen in a way to just understand what the other person is saying. They get defensive. And then that defensiveness makes it turn into a debate. And everybody's trying to be right, or people are taking sides. And it's not about that. If you want to really be able to have effective conversations about race and racism and race relations and building bridges, then you've got to be able to listen, and you've got to be able to paraphrase what someone else is saying from their perspective. Like, your opinion is your opinion, or your experience is your experience. And I want to listen to you in a way that I can affirm that, or I can make sure I understand that. It doesn't mean I have to agree with it, and it doesn't mean that I've got to make it like mine. It doesn't even mean I have to compare it to my experience and now convince you of what my experience has been, as if one is better than the other. So one of the most powerful things you can do, which will empower you to be in these kinds of conversations, is to trust that you have listening skills that keep you from turning things into a competition or a debate, or who's right and who's wrong. A fourth thing that you can work on is also a skill, and that is developing and practicing your conflict resolution skills. Because often what happens is we create conflict, or we're in a meeting or an environment or at an event, and differing views or differing experiences that are influenced by our race and our ethnicity happen. It happens. But if I have confidence that I actually know how to stand in conflict, and resolve it or talk about it, or make sure I'm understanding what the real conflict is and not just get caught up in the drama of the conflict. If my skills are there, then I don't have to be afraid that if someone tells me what I just said was racist, or if someone tells me what I just said was offensive to them, I'm going to immediately want to know more. Tell me more about that, because no, my intention was not to be offensive. So I want to really understand. Now, let me understand this, right? I'm using both listening and conflict. I'm paraphrasing, and then I come back with what would be a better thing to do or to say in the future. Because my goal is not to stay in the conflict. My goal is to use my communication skills or my leadership skills to resolve the conflict in a way that is respectful for myself, for them, for everyone around me. But if I don't have confidence in my conflict resolution skills, then yeah, I'm going to shut down. I'm going to avoid the conflict. I'm going to hide from the conflict. I am going to run as fast as I can away from the conflict, and then avoid every situation that might bring similar conflict up in the future. But if I have confidence in my conflict resolution abilities and I have the presence to bring that skill forward, I no longer have to be afraid. Now we've got about 2 minutes remaining. I am paying attention to the time. So let's see if I can add in 1 or 2 more things that you can do. The way you ask questions makes a huge difference. And I probably will do a full 30 minutes on this sometime soon, on asking questions that really give you the opportunity to build relationship or to learn more. But in 1 minute, what I would say about that is, learn to ask questions that are exploratory and that are behavior-based and that are personal. Like, what has been your experience in a situation like this? Or what did you learn when you were growing up about people from different ethnic groups? Or how did the way you grow up prepare you to be in this organization that is multi-ethnic and multi-generational in nature, right? I'm asking questions. There is no wrong answer because I'm asking you about your own experience or your own behavior, and I'm learning about you. I'm not evaluating whether you are like me. The questions that create a wall, the questions that create the conflict would be questions that are inflammatory. Like, why do your people think that? Number 1, I can't speak for all people. And number 2, your why is offensive, right? If it's asked like that, with that attitude, right? There's a way to ask a why question that is not offensive. But in general, when people are asking why questions on this topic, it's with a little bit of an attitude or a judgment built in, or asking people about their belief rather than their behavior or experience also can trigger challenging conversation if it's asked in a way that the belief is questioned in what you are saying or believing. And then my final tip for you in terms of what you can do to close the gap and reduce your fear of offending is to give yourself a learner's permit. And anybody who's been around me or sessions that I've done know that I rarely talk about this subject without saying, be gentle with yourself and give yourself a learner's permit. You are not supposed to know everything already. You are not supposed to do it perfectly. You are not supposed to be the expert all the time on every subject related to race, racism, or race relations. And therefore, you can be in the learning zone and give yourself permission to do that. That is all the time we have for this topic, for this Facebook Live. My name is Tracy Brown. I really, really encourage you to hang out with us at What Is Mine to Do on Facebook. It's a public group. There are a couple thousand of us, and we support each other as we navigate this commitment to ending race-based hatred and violence. Hope to see you there. Post frequently. Take care.